What's up? It's Matt. We're back with the man that publishes this magazine, puts out amazing content. We're going to talk about an article I saw in Entrepreneur Magazine that got my attention. Be back in a second. So Jason, welcome. Tell everybody out in internet land or on their phone when they hear this or watch this who you are.
Well, hello. First of all, that was a very sweet intro right there. I like just cutting to that thing. That was great. I was not prepared for that. You didn't tell me that was coming. My name is Jason Feifer. I'm the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. I'm also author of a new book called Build for Tomorrow. And I have the pleasure of talking with entrepreneurs all day and learning from them and seeing how they thrive.
I love it. And by the way, I bought the book on Amazon, like the pre-order.
So, thank you. I appreciate that.
I can't wait till it comes in. But the reason I reached out to you, I'm an avid reader, avid viewer of the website, especially because a month ago I was on there with Sean Walchef on your restaurant podcast. I was featured on there, so thank you. Yeah. But what got my attention was about a month ago. I'm traveling, as I do a lot, in an airport, and I see this, and I start reading the magazine. I always grab the magazine because I know for myself there's always going to be a piece of content in there that can add tens of thousands of dollars to my income based on knowledge or an idea. Always is. I think that with all magazines, all reading. But when I saw this, it got my attention big time because it's an article about a Chick-Fil-A franchisee that didn't shift during the pandemic, didn't shift after the pandemic. He shifted years before the pandemic about paying his employees a livable wage so that they could have a career versus a job. And it got my attention, and I shot you a message on there on LinkedIn about it. And I wanted to get your feedback, your thoughts, like some things that stuck out to you from it, and maybe the mindset around that for an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So let me tell you a few things about that piece. So first of all, credit to Francis Dodds, who's our deputy editor, who found that and championed that piece and wrote it. And the thing that really appealed to me about it was that guy who did that Chick-fil-A owner who did that, who'd raised his pay. He got some attention when he first made that decision, but I really don't find it that interesting to pay attention to someone at the moment in which they've decided to do something. I find it much more interesting to see what happened years later, because years later is when you get to see if their decision really worked. And so nobody else had followed up on this guy years later. And so we did. And when we called him, what we learned was absolutely fascinating, which was that it had a massive, massive impact on his business. He did it before. He wasn't forced into doing it. He didn't do it because because there was some kind of crazy labor shortage. He did it because he wanted to understand how he could best build his business, best serve his employees, and best make sure that he could solve for some of the big challenges in his business. Because even though he had decided to raise wages at a time in which there wasn't what we now consider to be a labor shortage, of course, he was dealing with the same thing that so many people in restaurants deal with, which is that it's hard to hold on to staff. Staff can be transient. And part of the reason for that is, of course, because they're working long hours. It can be grueling work and they're not getting paid enough. And so they're always looking for the next opportunity. And he was thinking, what happens if I change that dynamic and I create an environment in which people are feeling respected and that they can make a long-term career decision by being with me? What would happen if I do that? And the answer was transformation.
Yeah. And that was one of the reasons that I bought
so many of them.
110 copies. I got a box right here. There's a box in our sales room because for me, my goal as CEO of our company is to help arm my team, but also our customers. We work with hundreds of restaurants nationwide. And I had this exact conversation about 4 months ago with a guy that's a customer and a friend, and he was having labor shortage problems. I said, can I be blunt with you? He goes, yeah. I go, you wouldn't have as big a labor short problems because everybody had them. You wouldn't have as big a problem right now if, number one, you had created an inviting atmosphere that people were attracted to. And when I say that, like one thing I'm big on is video. I think the biggest mistake restaurants make is they don't use this device to capture their story and build excitement. Like you're just, oh, I can go sell burritos there. Well, maybe if they see you on TikTok and Facebook and they see that the boss is cool or fun and the employees are involved, it doesn't. But the other part of that is actually make it into where people can have a career. I said, dude, you've been trying to find $8, $9, $10 an hour people. Like it's not a career. Like you've had a bunch of stopgaps. Like it's almost like University of Cincinnati here. Love the college, But every time they get a good football coach, the coach leaves because there's Notre Dame waiting. There's, wherever the big universities, because UK or UC is a stopgap for football. Well, right. A lot of fast food restaurants are just the next stop where this guy decided, hey, I want my employees to work here, be excited to come here and not struggle financially. And like the article says, he's got employees that years later have paid their way through their kids' college. They've bought cars, they've bought houses. And that's a huge thing to me that stuck out.
Yeah. This is, I'm going to tell you a quick little history thing, and then we're going to swing back to it, because I was just having a really interesting conversation. You hear this phrase all the time right now. People don't want to work anymore, right? You hear that all the time. People don't want to work anymore. They don't want to work anymore because it's challenging now to hire people. And I'm not diminishing that. It definitely is. You see it. I see it all the time. There is a challenge in hiring people for jobs that it was easier to fill before. So people say people don't want to work anymore. Why don't they want to work anymore? Well, because, the pandemic forced people to reconsider how they're working, and now they're not working. But very, very interesting thing. There's this guy on Twitter he was a researcher at the University of Calgary. He found examples from history, from newspapers going back. The earliest one he posted was, I'm looking at it right now, 1894, where people are saying the same thing. People don't want to work anymore. They don't want to work anymore. Yeah. Like seriously, here it is. 1894. This person writes, it is becoming apparent that nobody wants to work during these hard times. 1905. Labor is scarce, high, and very unreliable. None want to work for wages. It just keeps going like this. Really, really fascinating stuff. 1952. I heard somebody say the other day that everybody was getting too darn lazy and nobody wants to work anymore. That's the truth if I ever heard it. So, okay, I read all this stuff and I wonder to myself, what's going on here, right? Because I understand that when people say people don't want to work anymore right now, I know what they're referring to. They're referring to a challenge that they're seeing in their own businesses, and a very real one. And yet, that word anymore, people don't want to work anymore, means that there's a belief that there was a time just before this one where people did want to work. Yeah. And so here right now, in looking at these clips from history, you see, not true. People were always frustrated that there was a challenge driving labor. So I wanted to know, well, what's going on with that? How do you explain that? So I called this guy. His name's Peter Stearns. He's he has studied the history of work. He's a professor at George Mason University. He's in the history and art history department. Yeah. And I sent him all these clips and I said, can we talk? Because I really want to understand what's going on here. And he said, sure. So I got him on the phone. And here's what he said. He said, if you look back at these things, what you're seeing are moments in which something has shifted in work. Right. If you go back to the 1894 one, it was a shift in the economy such that it was now people were able to get jobs in cities working for companies instead of doing backbreaking agricultural work. Right. And so every time that there's a shift in how we work, employees take a moment and they say, wait a second, is there a way in which I can do something better for me and my family? Doesn't mean that I don't want to work less.
Have options.
It means that I have better options. Yeah. And so I'm going to see what makes the most sense for me. So it's not that people don't want to work anymore. It's that people don't want to work these same jobs for this same deal that they did before. Doesn't mean that they don't want to work anymore. And once you understand that, you can say, well, okay, so if people still want to work and I want to attract great talent, then the question I have to ask is, how do I change the deal? Yep. How do I make this that it's a deal that they want to take and that we can grow together? That's what this Chick-fil-A owner had done proactively. He had changed the deal, and you see the results. Yep. People want to work. They want to show up and they want to work, and they want to work for people who they feel like respect them and are going to give them an environment in which they can feel like they are valued and that they can get compensated appropriately for the work that they put in. That's how you meet them. Yep. You meet them where they want to work and for what they feel they are valued for. And if your business doesn't have the margins to operate that, then it's time to start to think a little bit differently. I understand that's easier said than done, but frankly, you can't run a business if you don't have good talent. So we have to start thinking about all the factors in play.
And you've got to, this is a part I think about it with the restaurant space is I've grown up around the analogy, you've got to treat people how you'd want to be treated. And about 2 months ago, I'm at a restaurant. I won't call the name out. I'm sitting there having breakfast, and I always have funny. I always try and make people smile. I say some stuff I might see from The Office, Michael Scott to servers and get them a laugh. And I said, what's going on? How's your week? You excited for the week? And it was a Monday. She goes, I actually am. I'm going to the beach. I said, oh, that's awesome. Like, what do you got going? She goes, well, it's the first time in my life I've been to the beach. This lady's in her 40s. I go, first time? She goes, yeah, I've worked here for 15 years. And this is the first time I've saved up enough money because we don't get paid time off. And I'm, what? You don't get paid time off? Like, this is a lady in her 40s with kids. Like, she's working her butt off and can't go. And I started thinking about it. Like, we have a shift. Like, up until a year ago, we had unlimited paid time off because I have a great team. And I'm like, hey, y'all can take off whenever you want. As long as your stuff's done, as long as you're happy, as long as you're smiling. We had the opposite effect. Nobody would use it. And so this year, in January 1st, it's okay. New policy. 5 weeks, mandatory paid time off every 10 weeks. So 10 weeks goes by. We have 2 teams, team 1, team 2. And so like team 1 will take off like next week. I think team 1's off. And then a week they'll all be together. And then team 2 takes off. But I'm like, you got those 5 weeks. You got 2 times personal time off. We take 2 vacation weeks off. And I like long weekends. Like, I don't know about you, but I love Memorial Day weekend. I love Thanksgiving when it's on that Thursday. You get that long weekend. We're having a holiday every month for a long weekend. Like this past weekend, we celebrated National Root Beer Float Day on Friday and we closed. And so for me, I wanted to create something that was a no-brainer because I know that my business is hard to get good talent and it's even hard to keep them in a competitive work environment. So I said, I'm going to create something nobody else is going to do, which was crazy vacation. And then in the middle of that, I'm at, my dad actually called me. He's like, I'm doing the math on this, Matthew. That's like 12 weeks off your employees have out of 52. I said, Dad, I could really care less. Like, as long as it makes them more productive and they're happy and they actually get the fruits of their labor. Yeah. But I kind of look at that the same way because I'm at that restaurant having breakfast. And there's a lady that's the same age as me, has not had a vacation in years. And then like same with the article from the magazine that, he's talking about, he looked at how can I keep people that I know are valuable? And then how can I, get better people in here? And it's like that. And I actually read an article. It was about another Chick-fil-A. And it goes back a couple of years where the guy had a great employee that was quitting, put his 2 weeks in. And the article from the theme of that article was ask why your people are leaving. And he said, hey, I'm curious, man, you're a great worker here. We value you. I feel like you enjoy your job. Why are you leaving? He said, well, the route changed, the buses, and the bus no longer comes here and I don't have a car. He's like, what do you mean? Like, you've been working for like 7-8 years. Like, I know I take the bus or I walk. And I just can't do it anymore. And I want you to stay here. Do you have a license? Yeah. I'll buy you a car. And he went and bought him a car. And I was blown away because like that right there, like if he would have just taken the 2 weeks, okay, cool, see ya. No, he asked the question. And I think that to me, we were saying off air, we were talking, I said, I think, but the pandemic shined a light that a lot of the people are out there to work. They just found something that fits their lifestyle and their happiness and allows them to be around their family more often than what you offer. And at the end of the day, a lot of restaurants offer a crappy job. It's another burger place, another taco place, another burrito place, another Mexican restaurant that they don't have to go to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And people, that anecdote that you just shared there about being in the restaurant, talking to that woman who hadn't been able to be at the beach because she hadn't had the time off, she couldn't afford it. That tells you something right there. And what it tells you is that there are 2 completely different ways of looking at work, depending on what your fortune in life is. And a lot of the people who are saying people don't want to work anymore today or back in history, when people are saying this stuff in history, 100 years ago, I'll tell you what, those people, they're not working the jobs that they want to fill. They're not working those jobs. Right. Wow. They're not. Let's just be brutally honest about it. They're not. They're not flipping the burgers. They're not getting minimum wage for flipping the burgers. They have. That's not to say that they haven't worked hard. It's not to say that they maybe didn't work that job earlier. But in this moment, they're not doing those jobs, and you will lose contact with what it is like to have to work those jobs if you're not the person working those jobs yourself. And so that means that it becomes pretty easy suddenly to say, well, I worked really hard and now I'm in this position in my life and I don't see why these people aren't taking $7.25 an hour to flip burgers. Well, I'll tell you what, they're not taking it because that doesn't work for them. Yeah. And so we got to ask the question, what does work for them? because what works for them works for you. This isn't like I mean, the two of us, right? The two of us, it's very important to note here. The two of us are supporters of entrepreneurs, are supporters of business owners, right? Neither of us are speaking from a position of like, just pure like labor rights and screw the owners. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how do you build a great business that's going to work really well for the entrepreneur, for the owner. And the answer is that you got to make sure that every single part of your business works. Yeah. And one of those things is labor. Like that part of the business has to work, and it won't work if you don't understand what those people need. When you think about what you need to run a business, one of the very foundational things, perhaps the most foundational thing, is you better understand what your customer wants. What does your customer want so that you can serve your customer? Well, we have to also understand what our employees want. Yep. And we have to be able to serve them too. Because if we don't serve them, they're not going to show up and work with us, and we're not going to be able to serve those customers.
And I'm looking at this article, 4 years ago is when they're talking about it. And he says, imagine making $17 an hour working at a fast food restaurant. And I've got hundreds of clients. I'm sure they have people between 8 to 12, 12 to 15. I mean, I've got certain employees that make certain amounts part-time to do things. And $17 at a fast food restaurant's great, because that person 10 years ago was always looking at $7, $8, $9, $10. And he went and did that when everybody's talking about the $15 an hour thing this past year. He's doing this 4 years ago. There's a thing that we preach in our clients. We have 51 tactics that we teach restaurants that they have to do if they want to dominate. And we call them blue ocean strategies. I'm sure you've seen the book, Blue Ocean, Red Ocean. Yep. And I call them blue ocean. If you're not familiar with it out there and you're watching or listening to this, it's that there's red ocean opportunities, which is you run a fast food restaurant and you pay $12 an hour. Well, guess what? So does everybody else. And so you're fighting over the same exact thing. There's blood in the water. When you're in the blue ocean, you're paying 17. Now, all of a sudden, when you find talent, it stays. It's like a friend of mine called me today. He had saw a post I made and saw the benefits. And he was joking because I can't afford him. He's a high-level executive. He goes, dude, can I come work for you? I said, why? Because I saw your benefits package. He's like, am I reading this right? I said, hey, I want to find people, but I want to retain them. And I look at blue ocean, red ocean. I can be like anybody else in the marketing world that's trying to find people that can copyright, that can take photography, that can film, that can, edit, that can speak in a sales meeting, whatever. I've got to have something in place that's going to keep people. And that's another big thing is it's expensive. It's more expensive to go find new people than it is to keep them.
That's exactly where I wanted you to go next, was because, people are going to say, well, okay, great. Pay them $17 an hour, pay them $50 an hour. But how exactly am I supposed to afford that? Because that's more money coming out of the coffers for the business. And I can't, triple the price of a chicken sandwich at Chick-Fil-A. So what am I supposed to do? And a big part of the answer is it costs a lot of money to continually replace, to find, hire, and then train people. And if you can hold on to people, you save a lot of that money. So Matt, you can speak to that personally because you see that in your business.
Yeah. Oh, I've been fortunate. I mean, now granted, we're not a restaurant. I'll just claim that. I don't have restaurant employees. I don't have that. I do know that pain because I have personally visited 1,000 restaurants the past 2 years. Me and my team travel in person, boots on the ground, because I feel like I can't see the problems that we need to create solutions for unless I'm there. Yeah. So we go, like right now, I've got teams in restaurants up in Pennsylvania, up in Bucks County, and I understand it. But at the same time, like in my business, I look at it. I've let go of one employee in 8 years. No, 2008, whatever that comes up to be, 15 years.
Wow.
For that ballpark. One employee we've let go of that was a full-time employee that just didn't work out. It was actually 4 years into the relationship because they just didn't evolve with the culture. But we've not had people quit. We've not had people leave because I feel like we give people a pretty good experience. Like the other day, one thing we put in place, like I wear orange all the time. I wear orange Jordan 1s, which is why the wall behind me is Jordan 1s. I wear them every day. And so I took one of our brand new employees. We went into a shoe store and she got her orange Jordan 1s. Like that's not an experience she's ever had at another job.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do things different. And that's what this young man did here. I mean, $17 an hour 4 years ago, and that just got my attention. So I appreciate what you put out in the magazine. I appreciate articles like that because it allows us to think differently and realize that, if somebody's doing it and it's working, he's paying his bills, that means you can do it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, look, I really appreciate, your support and also you sharing this important message with your community. I'll sort of leave you with a thought here, which is a phrase I've become obsessed with. It's throughout this book that I wrote, Build for Tomorrow, because the book is about how to become more adaptable and see opportunity and change, which is what we're going through a lot of right now. And what I keep thinking and what I keep seeing as the difference maker in so many businesses, 3 words. Like, how do I fit my hand into the screen? Reconsider the impossible. Reconsider the impossible, which is to say that I think that we often we feel like we know how to run the business. We know how to run our business. There's a million options out there. We have narrowed in a little window in which we are going to say the good ideas, the way in which we're going to operate, the things that are going to drive success, they're inside of this little box here. Everything else, bad ideas, impossible ideas, too difficult, too complicated, too expensive. And then what we often find is that either because of some proactive thinking or because we were forced into it, we discover that, in fact, some of the best ideas were the ones that we had left outside the box. And what we have to do is we have to reconsider the impossible, reconsider the things that we thought were impossible. The idea of paying $17 an hour at minimum at fast food, that sounds impossible. What would happen if you reconsider it? What would happen if you look at it and you say, you know what, maybe the best way for me to drive my business is to adopt an idea that I left outside, that I didn't take seriously. What would happen if I did take it seriously? Let's try it. Let's see what would happen. Because I will tell you something, when people do this, when they are willing to go outside of the little boundary that they had built for themselves of what they think their business needs, what they often discover is that some of the absolute most transformative ideas, they're not beamed down from Mars, they're not created by supernatural forces, they were just things that we left outside, and we need to consider those too.
So the restaurant business, one thing a lot of them haven't done, you joked before the pandemic, is that they're 20 years behind technology. Now they're 10 years behind. And a good example is like my daughter just texted me. She wants to go to the steakhouse because she's home from college for like 2 days, and we're going to go tomorrow night. And you have to call there and make reservations. They have a person. It's grueling how long it takes. I mean, granted, we're all impatient now, but that is something that could have been on their website. Eliminate that person. Maybe not have I would challenge the average restaurant's probably got 2 or 3 people that could be replaced by technology, and that you could pay the people there a lot more, because there's a lot of opportunity. But your story reminds me of a quick one I heard a long time ago by Jay Conrad, who is the godfather of guerrilla marketing. I got to hear him speak in a 15-person room for 4 days. And he talked about when he went to Tabasco. And he went to Tabasco and he spent an entire week there shaking the bottle, getting it on the food. And he got to the very end and they said, okay, you paid me $250,000. I'm going to present to you an idea that you're probably going to hate, that everybody's already heard about, but it's the right one. And I'm going to present to you the marketing package you all thought you needed. You need to increase your sales because of this. And he's like, no, make the hole bigger in the bottle. I can't get the damn hot sauce out. He's like, you're a product that gets consumed. It's consumed at a high rate at restaurants. If the hole's bigger, consumers use it more, restaurants buy more. Sure enough, they ended up taking the advice because he's the expert, not the employees that said it for 10 years probably. But to them, it was the impossible. We can't change it. We can't do it.
Right.
And so the book is available on Amazon now, right? Build for Tomorrow?
Yes, it is.
Pre-order. Sure is. Comes out in like September, October.
So it's pre-order on Amazon or anywhere you find books, you can find it. It's available. It comes out September 6th.
Okay.
And so, but you can get it anytime. And I'm offering I don't know when this is going to come out. When is this going to come out?
The next couple of days, next 4 or 5 days.
So, So if you order if somebody wants to pre-order in August, I'm offering this deal. If you want to put this on the screen, jasonfeifer.com/book. So JASONFEIFER.com/book. And if you pre-order in August, you just fill out a little form there. And if you have a question, I will send you a personal voice memo answering that question. I want to be as useful as possible to people. I love direct connections. So pick up that book. I think it'll be really useful. And I can't wait to connect with you directly.
I love it. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get the book. I'll read it. And after I read it, I want to have you back on and do a little deep dive into maybe 2 or 3 questions I have from it. Is that cool?
Sounds great. A lot of fun.
And here he is. Go get the magazine. If you're not a subscriber, get a subscription. I actually have a subscription now, which is funny. I always buy it in airports the last like 4 years.
Yeah.
My wife's like, why do you have a subscription?
It's a lot more economical, man, to just
it makes a lot
subscribe.
more sense than paying like $30 at an airport. But I got them now,
Right.
and I got a bunch. And if you're watching or listening to this, just hit me up, matt@mattplapp.com. I'll get you one unless we run out, but I'm going to guess we probably won't. But get me your information. We'll mail you one, matt@mattplapp.com, because it's a great magazine. There's a great article in there. It's something that restaurants definitely need to take into consideration to really reconsider what they think is impossible. Jason, I appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you.
Thanks, Jason.